Well, Scott, appreciate you joining me today. A lot to talk about. Let's start with the big question because a lot is happening in culture right now. If you could summarize the current state of marriage in America, what would you say?
Wow. Well, our whole focus is young people, and what we're trying to do is help young people understand and value and appreciate marriage and why it's worth waiting for. So, we have the National Marriage Campaign, and the whole point of the National Marriage Campaign is to inspire hope for America's youth toward healthy future marriage. So, let me back up a little bit, Billy, and just explain that, we started out as the Abstinence and Marriage Education Partnership, believing that young people can best prepare for marriage by understanding its value and why reserving all sexual activity for marriage can help them prepare for a healthy future marriage and family. We have research out of the University of Michigan that shows that about 90% of high school seniors across America say, I want to get married and I have a family, I want it to go well.
Wow.
Who's helping them? Think about this. Where do kids today get any instruction or encouragement on future marriage preparation?
Nowhere. They get TikTok, social media, Hollywood, right? That's setting the benchmark, right?
Everything mitigates against it. And what is really working against it is sex education in American schools. So I would say sex education in American schools is corrosive to the national soul. It's killing our kids. And what it does is it describes and discusses all variants of sexual activity except sexual activity within the context of a marriage relationship. Now, if you think about the sexual revolution, what the sexual revolution did in the 1960s and 70s, it said, hey, you don't have to be married. No, you get yourself some contraception. You have sex with a whole bunch of people. It'll be fabulous. And so the sexual revolution, if you look at the graphs, I could put some graphs up for you that would show that since the sexual revolution, non-marital birth rates have skyrocketed from 4% to 40%. 40% of American children today born outside the context of marriage. We think that's a real concern. And we think that the only way to address the problem of non-marital births at 40% is to help a new generation of American youth understand and appreciate the value of marriage and family and why waiting for marriage matters. So that's the whole argument that we're making to a new generation of American youth. That's our mission.
And it's so fascinating because you'll hear people on the secular side, on the more progressive side of this issue say, oh, that's so unhealthy. It's normal for kids to experiment and explore themselves. You'll hear these arguments all the time. Yeah. And then you'll look at the numbers. You just mentioned some of them and you scratch your head and say, but are people not understanding? I mean, one of the other arguments, well, they're going to do it anyway. So if we don't prepare them, there's more chance for pregnancy and disease. How do you respond to those critics when they start to say those types of things?
Yeah, utter foolishness. It's just foolishness. And somehow we've allowed them to get away with that foolishness, right? When you tell me kids aren't going to listen, they're going to do it anyway, you tell me nothing about the kids, you tell me everything about yourself. What you're telling me is that you can't figure out a way to communicate to young people the beauty and the value of marriage and why waiting for marriage matters. So our whole mission, so we have a curriculum division called the Success Sequence Program. And what that does is that provides curriculum to schools across the country as a replacement to sex education. So what we want to do is we want to give kids guidance. So, 90% of American high school seniors say they want to get married and have a family someday. We have curriculum that's going to show them how to make that happen. We're going to walk them through the steps of what's called the success sequence. Get an education, get a job, and then marry before having children. We're going to teach that to kids. So what we really exist to do is take all the wonderful research, Brad Wilcox, Getting Married, Glenn Stanton, Why Marriage Matters, all the great research that's out there, and we package it in a way that teachers can teach it to kids in school instead of the foolishness of sex education. All sex education is, Billy, is a codification of the sexual revolution. Sexual revolution said, you don't have to get married, you have to use contraception. And what is sex education in American schools? It's all about different contraceptive methods and different types of sexual activity without any reference to the context of marriage. So that's why we have the National Marriage Campaign, is because we really want to focus in on marriage as the central issue, that marriage is the cornerstone of culture. And so all of the social pathologies that we're dealing with today come back to the breakdown of marriage and family. And the three...
Yeah, and
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, nobody seems to want to talk about that, right? I mean, you guys are talking about it. A lot of people, they want to sort of glaze over it. Whatever I think and feel is the truth, and that's all that matters. And you have so many single parent homes. You have so many, like you mentioned, the breakdown of the family, and it is tied to so many other issues in our culture and in our society.
Everything.
Why do you think that people have answers right in front of them, but they keep choosing the problem again and again and again? They keep advocating when you have those solutions, and it seems pretty clear. What do you think is driving that?
I can't get into people's heads. I don't want to speculate as to what they're thinking. All I know is what's in front of me. And that is that the messages that the kids are receiving are harmful and not helpful. And we have a very beneficial message. Here's the way it works now. You have sex education in American schools, which is large. What a lot of people don't understand is that Planned Parenthood is not only the largest provider of abortions in America, they're the largest provider of sex education in American schools. A Planned Parenthood type sex education program is largely the standard in United States public schools, driven a lot by the Department of Education, the NEA, all of that. And so this very harmful message is at the center, is at the core of what ails our educational system, is sex education. And so what we want to do is help teachers. You can't just be against something, right? You have to be for something. And so what we're saying is not just stop teaching the bad. Here's how you can teach the good. The way it is now is schools have this sort of primary messaging of sexual revolution at their core. And then maybe a school will have a local pregnancy care center or somebody come in and do, a couple days of abstinence lessons or something like that. So that abstinence becomes the alternative for the weirdos. And so we have this primary message of Planned Parenthood, and then maybe a school will let the abstinence people come. Completely backwards. We exist to flip the script. It should be the opposite. Schools should fundamentally and primarily be teaching young people to reserve all sexual activity for the context of marriage, and Planned Parenthood should have no place in our classrooms. And so that's our entire mission, is we are working to flip the script, to change what's taught in schools. So what is taught is objectively. So coming back to what do I say to those people? I say they have no argument. What we're teaching kids is factually, objectively, provably true that reserving all sexual activity for marriage is your very best option. That's inarguable. You can't debate that.
It's so interesting. I mean, you guys are sort of the antidote to Planned Parenthood, in an educational sense, it sounds like. And, so many people have been frustrated by these dynamics. How successful have you been? You mentioned being in schools. What have you seen happen? Talk a little bit about, your organization's work in practice and what you've seen.
It's tremendous, actually. So largely what we do is teacher training seminars around the country where we equip teachers, mostly public school teachers, how to teach health well in this area. And it's all factual. It's all research based, right? Because again, it's factually true that if you reserve sex for marriage, it's going to be best. So we equip teachers to teach this. And to give you what I always say is the kids are never the problem. The kids are hungry for this message. They absolutely eat it up. The problem is all the geniuses out there, the smart people, right? The lettered people. All the people that are too sophisticated to teach this stuff. That's where the problem is. Once you can get past the gatekeepers who are super sophisticated and get the message to the young people, they're dying to hear it. They eat it up. I have a graph that I could send you that shows a group down in, and we have programs running in a lot of different places, but this one group near Knoxville, Tennessee sent me their pre-post test results where they interview the kids before and then after the program. We had an exact 90% flip. We had 90% of the kids coming into the program in answer to the question, I plan to save all sexual activity for marriage. 90% of the kids were like, no, or I don't know. 90%, no, or I don't know. After our program, an 8-week program where we explain everything to them, 90% Yes, sign me up.
Wow.
I mean, it's a complete
Wow.
flip. And I think that speaks to the confusion that our kids are growing up in our culture. Think about this. Of all of the sexual imagery that our kids are seeing in the media, and it's a lot, right? It's not just that our kids are being exposed to sex, but think about this. Of all the sex that our kids are exposed to on their phones, on their computer, on the TV, whatever, how much of it communicates to them sex within the context of marriage as a good and wholesome option for them? And the answer is, of course, good luck finding that. And so
No, I mean, what is shown is go and have sex with whoever you want. There are no consequences. It's fun, as you were saying before. I mean, that every comedy, every sitcom, every drama, and it's only gotten worse. I mean, this content has gotten more in your face, more diabolical. It's more difficult than ever for families to shield kids from it. So, we can't be shocked that kids are where they are. I think what is shocking is that it's taken so long for us to catch up. And it sounds like you guys have been on top of this, providing this option. And how many schools would you say are currently using your program?
It's hard to keep track of. A lot of our work is in the state of Illinois because that's where we're located, but we service groups in other areas. But just in Illinois, currently over 100 schools are using the program here in Illinois. And then, like I said, we've got projects going on in other places too. But we're constantly equipping and encouraging people to teach these things. Since we started, we've had over 2 million teens go through the program. So we're making a dent, but there's a lot of kids out there, and there's a lot more people that need to understand that there is a solution. And that's the key thing for us, Billy. It's all about solutions. If you look at, again, any of the social pathologies, it comes down to the breakdown of marriage and family. How are you going to fix that problem? I'm not about chasing symptoms. I'm about getting to the root issue. And the root issue is the breakdown of marriage and family, which is related to a breakdown in faith in our culture, of course. So those are the critical factors. And so we're not chasing symptoms. And we're not a pregnancy prevention program. If anything, we're a pregnancy promotion program. We don't think that pregnancy should be taught to kids as a problem, but rather it's not a problem to be avoided. It's a hope to be cherished. So what I want to teach my kids is not don't have sex because you might get pregnant. That's a bad thing. I want to teach them pregnancy is good and beautiful and wonderful and special and amazing and valuable. So preserve it for the context of a marriage relationship, so that child has the opportunity to be born into a beautiful cradle with a loving married mother and father. That's the way to restore culture. And so we're very much focused like a laser beam on that central core issue. And that's what we teach. And kids absolutely eat it up. They're dying for it.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we're seeing this with faith too, right? You can only shovel so many lies to young people before they start to realize, okay, this isn't true. You've told me I can come up with everything I want to come up with that I believe is true, my own morals, my own values, I get to invent it all. I go and do that and it doesn't work. And so you're left looking for something else. So it doesn't shock me that when people see your program at the National Marriage Campaign, they're intrigued by it. Young people want to know more. Now, if people want to know more, if they want to bring it to their school or get more information, where can they go?
Yeah, nationalmarriagecampaign.com, nationalmarriagecampaign.com. If they want our curriculum specifically, that is successsequence.com. successsequence.com. So those are two websites where we provide lots of help and information to people. And I actually heard you, Billy, on one podcast that you did recently talking about what ails our culture and how these kids have been raised in a culture where they're taught there is no meaning, there is no purpose. Of course, absolutely. And the same is true here with marriage, right? That they've grown up in a culture in which marriage is devalued and never shown in a positive light in any of the media that they're seeing. And so again, one of the reasons why our program works so well is I say, the darker the night, the brighter the light, right? And so as they live in this increasingly gray and confusing culture, when we lift up something that is clearly beautiful and true, they're like, oh my goodness, where do I sign up for that? And it's just the truth is so powerful and it cuts through the darkness in a very beautiful way. And kids are just hungry for it.
Well, I love that. And Scott, would love to have you back as well. Any research you guys are putting out, things you're working on as time goes on, we would love to feature that. This is an important topic. The breakdown of marriage and family, as you said, it's tied to so many other things, almost every other ill that we're watching happen right now in this country as the morals seem to crumble and the values seem to fall apart. we need to get young people back to understanding the importance of this. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate your good work.